Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again. Um, God kind of put something in my spirit. Um, see, I have this covenant with God, and I've actually shared that I have this covenant with God. And while most people will think I'm crazy who don't know me and don't know what I've been through, there are some who believe and say, "You build, we defend. You build, we defend." And God kind of gave me a response to it, and I didn't understand it so much when he gave it to me. Because, see, this guy, Hiel of Bethel, Hiel, however you want to say it, he's a guy in the Bible who rebuilt Jericho. And he did so at the expense of his firstborn and his youngest child. Okay? Um, it's a pretty traumatic thing. And they say that this happened as a result of what earlier on, who was it? Joshua, he put a curse on the people if anybody should ever rebuild the city, that they would die, that they would lose their children, something to that effect. And Hiel came up to rebuild Jericho, and he came under the rule of Ahab. And you remember Ahab is Jezebel's husband, and they kind of persecuted the Jews. They fought with Elijah. Elisha cursed them and said the dogs would eat them and their followers, and the birds would catch those and eat those who ran off into the field. It was a whole mess of a thing, and I talked about how evil exploits people, how they work the environment to make things the way they want them, how they'll petition you first for what they want, but if you don't give it to them, they kill you, and then they take it anyways. So they make it so that you have to work with them. If you want to live, you have to work with them. You have to oblige whatever it is that they desire of you. Otherwise, you're put to death, and they take what they want anyways. They take your property, they divide your clothing amongst themselves. I've had my clothing divided amongst people many times. So it's crazy the way that evil, like, it doesn't have any new tools. It doesn't have any new methods. It just keeps on doing the same thing. And we, thousands of years later, are still suffering with the same problems that they had back then. If only we'd open our eyes and see, right? But back to what this thing that God was putting in my mind, in my spirit, in my heart, um, the reason why he brings this before me is because, the reason why Jericho was cursed is because when God, when God brings himself again, you know, Israel isn't going to be confined to just one section of the world, not one section of a nation. It's not going to be something that is walled in where no one can see, but rather it will be a city without walls, a city without defenses. And this is why God brought it into me, because they keep saying, "You build it, we defend it. You build it, we defend it." I'm like, "Build, defend, what? Shut up." You know? Um, and I think of this guy because where we say that he built things at the expense of his children, and this was the curse that was put on the land. He was trying to build something holy. He was trying to, like, restore a holy city, because Jericho, it means a fragrant land, right? It's one of the oldest cities in the world, but it has something to do with a pleasant fragrance, a sweet breath. His life, his animation, his soul, his mind, his spirit, you know. Jericho has a spiritual significance to it. Um, but the thing is, when you know God, You can't wall things in. God does bring a sweet fragrance around you. Sometimes I walk out the door and I smell lavender and lilacs and peony, and there's none of that growing around my house, but I smell it, and I smell it heavily, and it's so wonderful to walk through, so I know what it means when God is present, how he puts a scent around you, I know how that is, and I know how some people believe that if they don't protect it, if they don't guard it, they'll lose it. You got to defend your faith. But faith actually proves itself if you allow it. Faith actually works itself out. You know why? Because God gives you desires in your heart so that he can bring to life those desires. It's in you because he put it in you. He blesses those who bless, but those who are blessed already are blessing. It's like this reciprocal relationship between the two. God doesn't give you like a hunger for something foreign when you're blessed. He gives you a desire that he manifests for you. And in this way, you see him working. Your faith proves itself. That little seed, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, that little seed brings forth a great tree. It brings forth great harvest, that tiny little seed. And you have to understand it wasn't just you. When you recognize that it wasn't just you, that it was God. And if you put up gates, you see, if you limit the power of God, then that seed that he put in you, it might not get the nutrients that it needs. It might not get the adversity that it needs, Storms are pretty chaotic, and they can break a tree in two if it's hard, But if it's strong enough to bend, that tree will work with it. If its roots run deep, that tree will stay rooted. If they're shallow, the tree will be uprooted. It might not break, but it'll be uprooted, God has a way of doing things, and when you hedge things in, that seed that he planted into you, it can't get deep roots that spread wide and make it grounded. It's blocked, it's cut off. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? It can't go out to where it needs to go. God said that he's what I was reading to you yesterday. He said that he brings the nations to you. He brings kings from afar, your children carried on their hips. If you put up a wall so that those in your nation can't get to what you carry, if they can't get shelter, then how's it going to happen that kings should come to you? You've already restricted access. Nobody can see through your walls. The word can't get out that God is present. You understand? It can't get out that God is present. Let's see. This bit where I'm going to switch on you and go back to what I was trying to say originally, where it came at the cost of his firstborn and his youngest son. Do you know people like Ahab and Jezebel? They work this evil system where, how many of you know, if you can't get someone to do something you want, grab their kid. You wanna coerce them, you wanna extort them, you wanna manipulate them, you wanna break them, you wanna do it with the least amount of energy, grab their kid. All you have to do is make a threat, or all you have to do is earn that kid's favor. And then the parent will be in competition with you. And you'll be dying, the parent will be dying, because no matter what they do, they're losing the kid. Why? Because this authority over here, they're not raising the kid to be good. They're giving flattery. They're puffing up with entitlement, They're letting the kid get away with things. They're justifying the kid's wrongs. They're making a little sociopath out of your kid. You know, like for real. They're building a psychopath just so that they can use your kid to break you. You know, it's not always a threat of violence, but sure enough, you take someone's kid and you have someone just, you have their life destroyed. You have them weak. You have them tired. You have them worn out, you know. And of course, they pass laws with things, you know, and they work through other people so you don't even see that the ones sitting up here are the ones working down here, who are the ones who have access to your kid, and you're legally obligated to give your kid over. It's this horrible institution that they built. And I notice, like, every time I speak, that they come and they attack my kids. Every time I open my mouth, they send me a notification, low lunch balance for Alana. Low lunch balance for Ben. My kids don't eat hot lunches. I pack their lunches every day. My son Ben, he has a special diet. He will eat yogurt and fruit. Sometimes Tostitos and fruit. You know, he does not eat school lunches. He does not like bread. He does not like processed foods. He eats mashed potatoes that I peel and cut and cook, you know. It has to be prepared a certain way. You can't be adding weird stuff to it, you know. No sour cream in it. Just butter, salt, pepper, milk, you know. And then when it comes out, a little red salt on it. And that's the way he takes his mashed potatoes. If they're not served this way, he's not eating them. He's got texture issues, and he's very sensitive, and if it doesn't taste just like it's supposed to taste, he won't eat it. We go to a restaurant, he eats French fries, if he eats at all. Ice cream, not real food. You try to give him chicken nuggets, he's not going to eat it. So what makes you think that I care if my kids have a low lunch balance? I think that they're just taunting me with these things because they're letting me know that they have my kid, that they use my kid to prove their case in some way. And it's like, I know you did. Why do you think I'm not fighting you? But I'm exposing your ways, you know? I know you did. You know, with my older son, who they completely turned against me and made him hate me, he had regular visits from DCFS. Like, regular visits from DCFS when I had no open case. It's just they wanted to put someone in with them. And I don't send my kids to therapy. I don't give psychologists access to my kids. I know that the Church of Scientology was condemned and because their position on psychologists and mental health. I know that we condemn them and say they're hiding something, but then I learned that this is just a tool that they use to force you to give access because they're going to condemn you no matter what you do, no matter which way you go. And if you don't give access, they'll force access. They'll do it without your consent or your permission because they'll use some kind of agency that has privilege to operate above the law, meaning police bow to them, schools bow to them, judges bow to them, you know, and they protect themselves. I don't know if you remember the AJ Friend case, little boy killed in Lake County, Illinois, and his parents killed him. DCFS had involvement in the house. They came out multiple times. They never did anything. But when the boy died, they inserted papers into his medical files in the hospital to make the case look some other way so that they could avoid accountability and point the finger somewhere else, like someone else dropped the ball, meaning the hospital. You know, so we see how this agency exploits people, and then we see how they manufacture information, how they doctor records, and then we see how they point the fingers to make someone else to blame, but that someone else, meaning the hospital, will still collaborate with them going forth and give them access to whatever they have to do. There is no laws in this agency. Do you understand? They are completely lawless. They run agendas. They don't care for your children. When they take your children away from you, sometimes they put them in prison. And I have no indicated cases. I have no involvement with the agency. Last time they came to my house, they ran amok. They made me jump through hoops for them, and then they closed the case and offered no service, And then they came back again another time. They offered service, but they were using the worker that they sent to offer service with to try to undermine and destabilize me. Like, my daughter was 6 years old, and they were telling me that I needed to put covers on my electrical socket so that she wouldn't electrocute herself. And that was a basis for neglect, where they run cases, they run stories. And we need to be aware of this, because this game that they put me through, right? They have a real stock in making sure that I never get up, so that they're never exposed. And so they control the narrative around me everywhere I am. So here's my rebuttal. I expose you, and I unpack biblical truth on your head. They had the same kind of leaders in Ahab's day. They had the same kind of system set up. Evil don't have any new moves. They do the same thing. They use your kids to kill you. And if you fight back in any way, if you try to get up, if you rise above the position and condition that they sat you in as a slave, they come for your kids. That's why I tell you, you're not attacking my kids. Don't taunt me with my kids, because that just is a reminder for me of all the nonsense that you did, like pulling my daughter out of class in kindergarten and interrogating her, and then sending DCFS to me. That's how DCFS came into my life to begin with. It wasn't something that happened. It was something that was interrogated, something that was manipulated, something that was pushed. Come on, you have to tell us. You have to tell us. My daughter told me all about it. How she told them that Daddy hurts Mommy because Daddy grabbed Mommy's wrist, But it's the way they get things out and the way they exploit things. I didn't need to run off into a shelter that time because he grabbed my wrist, but it was their wish that I should jump through these hoops or them take my children away because Daddy grabbed my wrist that time, because they pulled my daughter out of class. Not because anything happened to give them suspicion, but because they were caught in their wrongdoing. So when you troll me about Alana, I remember what you did to her in kindergarten. I remember how you pulled her out and interrogated her. I remember how upset she was when she came home, how she felt like she betrayed me. I remember how she told me about it, that she didn't mean to. I remember that she came to me with it. So I was expecting DCFS before they showed up. And while I had a vision, before of DCFS taking my kids away, there's a woman in this red shirt that came. I saw her long before she came. I knew to do everything she said, even though it was ridiculous to abide by her word, demanding that we all pick up and move into a shelter because Daddy grabbed my wrist, You have no idea the games that evil plays, and evil is always the same. Evil will work through someone even when that someone is given no choice but to work with evil. Evil just works people, if you understand what I'm saying. So when this guy came up and he's trying to rebuild a holy city, he's trying to protect it from evil. He's trying to protect it from Ahab, He's trying to protect it from Jezebel. He's trying to rebuild something holy, and it comes at the expense of his children. I understand how that works, because they sure do put my kids up in my feed. They sure do taunt me about, father and son. Oh, you want to play that card with me? Shall we discuss how you manipulated my kids to see their father for someone that he wasn't? And then, you didn't just do that. When you were caught, then you manipulated my kid to attack his father and actually put my kid in danger, attacking his father, telling them that he was good for nothing, that he doesn't do anything, that he's not a father, that he's just a wallet. You put my kid in danger playing both sides with my kid. And this wasn't my kid at all. This was you sitting on top of him, directing the narrative, trying to control the play. Because what, you're the master puppeteer? No, I have a God. That's why I understand. You're not the solution to my problem. You're not my help. You're a danger to me and those around me. You're a danger to democracy. You're a danger to all of creation. Because you are Ahab. You are Jezebel. You are the reincarnation. You are Amalek. You are Hitler. You are Stalin. You are the recreation of evil gone by. And I got to see it for my own eyes. And I give glory to God for showing it to me and helping me to survive it. And I understand why this guy. We're not building it. We're revealing God. We try to build something, it's going to come at the expense of my kids. It's going to come at the expense of my kids. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let God reveal himself. He's shown me the world on fire. And look at the smoke that's in Chicago from Canada. Look at the smoke that's in New York from Canada. Look at the wildfires in California. Look at the ground crumbling. Look at the earth burning 138 degrees. Look at the world right now. God showed it to me on fire. He's going to move it. And where it goes through next is not my choice. It was just my responsibility to give him my yes. It's not for me to build. Do you understand? The gates of Israel, if it's built, is open wide. It's open wide not just to the people, not just to the nation, to the world. You understand? We don't build things based on our constructs of what we think we need to do. Because if we do that, if we build these walls, if we put up defenses, then guess what? It comes at the expense of something that we maybe cannot bear to live without. So here's what we do. We let people know this is why you're being judged. It's not because you're evil. Evil is evil, don't get me wrong. But it's because you're being used by evil. And because you refuse to turn away from things that you ought to turn away from. Because you give evil so much power. And it's risen so high that it's got this net that covers the whole earth. And now, because you didn't stand up, because you didn't have strength, because you weren't brave, because you weren't strong and courageous, your enemies couldn't bow to you because you never had the willingness to stand up, You cannot let evil do things. You must abide by the laws of your nation. If your nation has laws guaranteeing rights, understand that this nation established these laws because it came out of a situation where people stripped away the rights of people, where people pitted people against each other, where people didn't know how to live right and had their strings pulled. So when we started a new nation, we said men have certain unalienable rights, that we all have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, It said these things to you so that you would understand, that if you don't respect the guy next to you, that he has rights, that your rights mean nothing, that you're no nation by yourself. You can't have entitlement alone. And if you're going to have entitlement as a nation to these rights, then you must respect the rights of others within a nation. And if you tear down these rights, you tear down the nation, you bring judgment of God on it. You bring judgment of God on it because, once again, it's only torn down because you've let evil to rule over you. We're supposed to be one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's what we say in our Pledge of Allegiance, right? But they're dividing us. They're dividing us and then hanging us, And I only see like this level right here to DCFS. But I see another level above DCFS with a judge who's directing DCFS, I see another level above the judge with a national agency directing the judge. National agency governed by who? The lawmakers, the president, the Supreme Court. It goes, evil rises. It rises and it sets the standard down. And in the nation where we're supposed to have a constitution that guarantees us rights, we ignore them and we justify rights being stripped away because we put our trust and our faith. We got this ideology that these agencies wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it unless you're a person of color. So if you're a person of color, you get a defense. If you're a Jew, we say you're anti-Semite. They don't attack these people. But if you're just an everyday white girl like me, you're fair game. Attack you all day long, right? You have no tribe to give you this protection to say, no, these people are, because they've in pulling down the master class, and pulling down their rights to freedom, they haven't understood that they've caused more division in saying that you don't do this to black people. How about saying you don't do this to all people? All people. We're American, no matter what our nationality, no matter what our race, no matter what our sexual orientation, no matter what our religious background, no matter our intelligence level, our emotional maturity, our age, no matter the circumstance, we are entitled to rights. And if you are going to take the rights of someone away, you must do it in a court of law where they are allowed to not only know the charges against them, because they do run a Kafka scheme where you don't know anything that's going on, just they're pulling your strings left and right, left and right, left and right. You got to jump through their hoops, do what they say, and they kill you anyways. They do run the Kafka schemes, I heard the Jews say that Kafka was prophetic of what happened to them. And you know what? Kafka was prophetic of what happened to me. Kafka, he wasn't just talking about like one group. He was talking about this is what evil does in general. And they set up the system like this because they know how to get people by dividing people, by pitting people against people. So America, the nation of the covenant, the nation of the Brit, right? You are your own worst enemy because you let evil in. You let evil in. And when you come to me and you say, you build it, we'll defend it, how can I let you secure me when you corrupt things over here, when you work appearances, when you strip away the rights of the people, when you don't secure your own nation with your own laws, how can you be trusted on God's purpose? You need to think about this, and then you need to turn back. You need to turn back and set things right, because I won't have nothing to do with you. And it's not that I'm holding a grudge. It's that I will not be corrupted by you. I will not preserve your life so you can keep on, so you can grow your power through me. I will not do these things because I serve God. And he said, nation without gates. I don't need to build it. I don't need to defend it. I don't need you putting fear in my head. You're the thing to be feared and separated from. And if you don't like me saying that, change your ways. Fix your own country. Stop blaming the people and look at this system, this institution that you deem must be protected at all costs. And consider that sometimes that Tower of Babel needs to be burnt to the ground, brick by brick. That thing that gives you so much power over people, that makes you like a god over them, needs to be torn down brick by brick. It needs to not move into where we're going next, And wherever we're going next, I throw up my hands, I surrender. I surrender. I don't know. I know it'll be better than this, but I know it's is a lot of hurt and hardship, before we get there. But I know the way into it is by coming out of this nonsense. You can't get into what's next if you're clinging to the Tower of Babel, if you're clinging to iniquity, if you're clinging to injustice, if you're clinging to building a wall and defending it. I don't need your defense. I got God. He's my strong tower, He's the shadow, He's the shade that I rest under. I don't need you. I'm good, I'm good. Don't come to me with your systems. I don't want to hear them, I want no part of iniquity. Let me walk in freedom and liberty. Let me trust God. And because I know, like if all else fails, like Elijah, he just snapped me up. Everyone that's holy, that couldn't build nothing here. They couldn't build it because the people were unwilling to change. God saved his servant and the world burned. Do you understand? The world went into chaos. Pay attention to that. No one can save you. You have to save yourself. Get out of nonsense. Follow the laws. If you don't know what laws to follow, follow the laws of your nation and make sure you secure the rights of your neighbor. All right? Y'all have a good day and God bless. That's all I got to say.